everyone, Karen here, and today I have something a little different for you today. Now, Crafter's Companion has been digitizing a lot of their old sets, and I have the Bohemian set here. And I'm going to take you through the whole process from buying it on their website to downloading it onto a machine and cutting it out and then making it into a card. And I hope this makes it a lot easier the next time you want to use digital files. Let's start here on the Crafter's Companion homepage. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to type in digital. And it will pull up all the digital materials they've added. Now I am going to have this go from high to low because I want the big bundles to show up first. And I'm going to scroll down until I find Bohemian. So I'm going to open this up. And now I can see there's digital paper, there are stamps, and there's an SVG file. So I am going to go and add that to my basket. And then I'm going to open my basket and I see I have one Sarah Signature Bohemian Collection digital. And then I would go ahead and hit check out. You check out like you normally would. You'll have your Club Inspired discount and all that good stuff. And then within a few minutes you will receive an email. Your email will look like this. Your Sarah Signature Bohemian Collection is ready to download. Download now. You will click on download. And you'll notice that this arrow up here starts going roundy. And once that is completely around, your download will be finished. And it's still saying it's in progress. And any second now, it will change. There it goes. So it now tells me that it is done. So now, let me close these out. So now I have my download file open. Now for your computer, if you have it set up for your things that you download to go to a specific file, that's where it's going to go. For me, I just leave everything in the download file and it's all right here. So if you'll notice here that this is a zip file, because it's obvious because it's got that big old zipper on it. So you're going to have to right click on it. You're going to hit extract all, and I'm going to hit extract. And it will take it a moment. And there it goes. All right, so now I have the second folder here, which has the same name. The only difference is this has the zipper because it's a zip file. This is the open file that we can now work with. So I'm going to double click on that. And now you'll see there are papers, there are stamps, and there's the SVG files. Now, it might be hard to see on the screen, but there is a tiny zipper here. So that means we have to unzip or extract these files also. So we're going to right click. We're going to hit extract all. We're going to hit extract again. Let it do its thing. And now you see it's added a fourth file, which has the same name as up here, but once again, there's no zipper. So this is the folder we can then work with. So let's double click on that. Open up that. Now we have a choice of A2 or 12 by 12s. So let me open up the A4s. Let me open up the A4s. And here's all the papers. Now if you want to see them bigger, you can come up here to view, change it to extra large icons, and then you can make your papers bigger so you can see them a little bit better. All right, so let's go back to the signature collection. So now we've opened up the digi papers. Now notice once we've gone away from this folder and come back to it, it now puts the two things right next to each other and the open folders are on top. So that's where they'll be when you go back and forth. So now let's come down to stamps. We'll do the same thing. Right click, extract all, extract, and those are open. We'll do the same thing with the SVGs. Right click, extract all, extract, and that is also open. So now we have all three files that are open that we can now work with. So let's go ahead and look at the Digi Stamps right away. Now you'll notice there's two. There's a UK and a US version. I'm not sure what the difference is, but they do behave differently. When I was opening up my Cameo software, it didn't like the US version, even though I'm in the US. The UK one, it liked, and I had no problems with it. So if you have trouble opening one, try the other one. So let's go back here and our SVGs. Now notice it all has the big giant C on it. That is the multicolored blue and green. Now my computer has an extension on it that allows me to see the pictures instead of just that big giant C. So you give it a second and then all the pictures open up, and now I can see there's this, there's the fan, there's all the little pieces, there's the card, the dreams, the create a card, and the mandala. So let me come back here now. So now everything is open, everything, we can work with everything. So let me close this off and open up my Silhouette software. So this is the screen on my Cameo. The pictures over here is where we're headed. But we're going to go through it step by step to recreate this. As far as I understand, the Scan and Cut is very similar to the Silhouette. Cricut is very different. I do have some notes on the Cricut because you do have to bring in your files, and that first screen where it says to adjust, make all your choices and name it and put the tags on it. That's, you're going to have to go through that screen because Cricut does make it a little bit more complicated. So I will go through this, and the Scan and Cut, like I said, is very similar. And then I'll try and touch upon some of the things in Cricut. I can't get into my Cricut software anymore because I no longer own a Cricut. So I have to rely on my old screenshots from my old videos. But I will try to do my best to help people who are stuck on the Cricut. All right, so let's begin. So the first thing I want to do is decide what size card I want to make. Well, I want to make a 5x7. So just to make my life easy, I'm going to come over here and pick a rectangle. And I am going to come up here and size it at 5x7. And I'm going to leave it at white. I just need that as the background to make sure I'm sizing everything properly as I go along. So the first thing I want to do, well, the second thing I should say, is I want to bring in my background paper. So I'm going to come over here to File. I'm going to hit Merge. And it is going to go to the last file that I was in. So I'm going to back out until I am back at the Sarah Signature Bohemian Collection. And I have DigiPapers, I have stamps, I have SVG. So I'm going to go up to Papers. I'm going to go to the A4s. And I'm going to pick this pink paper here. And I'm going to bring that in. Now I don't want it to be that big. I want it, because my card is going to be 5x7, I want to bring it down 1/4 of an inch. So I want it to be 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. So I'm going to come up here and size it. So I'm going to go 4 3/4, which this is digital. So it's 4.75. And then I want it 6.75. So now I can grab both of those, I can line them up, and now I can see what my card is going to look like so far. Okay, so now let's bring in the stamps. So we're going to go back over to File, we're going to go back over to Merge, I'm going to back up again, back to the Bohemian page, and I'm going to bring in the stamps. Now this is where I said there was the US and the UK version. I'm going to use the UK one. I'm not sure why the Cameo doesn't like the US one, but it did not. All right, so I want this page first because I want Sending Love from this page. So I'm going to pick that page and pick OK. Yes, I want to import that page. And it brings everything grouped together. Let me move my card over to here. So it brings everything grouped together here in the middle. So I'm going to take this and ungroup it. Now notice it broke some of this up into teeny tiny little pieces. So we need to fix that. So I want the Sending Love, and that is all in pieces. So I'm going to highlight the Sending Love. I'm going to group that back together again. And now I can move Sending Love anywhere I want. Now the rest of this I'm not going to be using. So we'll just get rid of that for now. Okay, the next thing I want to do is put this on a white background. So I'm going to highlight this. I am going to go over here to Offset. I'm going to hit Offset. And now it is set at 0.1 inch. So that's pretty small, but that's pretty good for wording, I have found. So I'm going to hit Apply. Now I'm going to come over here because right now it's telling me it's just a clear shape that has a cut line on it. So I need to make that a white. So now I have white. So now I can take this, I can group that together. And now if I want to make a shadow like I have over here, I'm going to click on that again. I'm going to hit offset again and decide if I want the 0.1 again or if I want something smaller or bigger. I think I'll leave it at 0.1 for now. So I'm going to hit apply. Now I can pick any color I want. Now this is just for the sake of design. When you put your paper in, obviously it's going to cut in whatever color you put in your machine at the time. So I'm just going to leave that green just so we can kind of see it here. Alright, so this, now I'm going to put group, and now I can move this all over the screen anywhere I want. So that is now done. So now let's bring in this stamp up here. So I'm going to go back here to File, Merge. I'm going to pick the UK one again. I'm going to hit OK. Now it's going to ask me what page do you want to bring in, because this is a 2-page file. So I am going to scroll over to the second page. So now I can see the woman and I can see the flowers that I want. So now I can hit import and it brings in that page. So I'm going to do the same thing, highlight it. I'm going to ungroup it. Now see, she's all broken up into pieces again. So I'm going to take the whole woman, group her, and bring that over here. I'll put it over here so you can see it better. And now I want to do the same thing with the flowers. I'm going to group in, they're flowers and feathers. I'm going to take that together, group it, and I'm going to bring this over to here. Now the rest of this I don't need, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Alright, so let's work with the girl first. So notice this one over here is a lot darker, and the reason why it's darker is because I changed the color of the cut line. Alright, so notice up here, this is a 1. This is very important because if your line is 0, the machine thinks it's just a cut line that you want to cut. If it's something you want to print out and have thickness to, you have to have some thickness to the line for it to know it's not a cut line, if that makes sense. So this is a 1, and that's how it was designed. So I'm going to leave it at that. But what I can do is I can change this cut line to black. And that's just going to make it a little bit heavier and a little bit easier to see on the screen. Alright, so now I have this stamp. So before I print it out, I want to put a little offset around it, kind of like I did with the Sending Love. So now that this is highlighted, I'm going to hit offset. Now I want it to be 0.03 because that's going to give me a teeny tiny little offset. Because that's all I really want with the stamp. You can pick whatever you want. You can try a couple different ones and see what you like. And it is definitely personal preference. So now I have this. Now this looks like a mess. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to come down here to release compound path. And it is kind of like when we ungrouped everything. It's going to separate everything. Because all I really want is this outline. I don't want all this. For other projects, you would want that, but for what we're doing right here, yeah, I don't want that. So notice this line is at 0. So the machine is just going to cut that. It's not going to print anything, strictly going to cut it. So now I can grab both of these at the same time. I can come up here to center and group them. And now, when I print and cut this, it will print all these black lines here and then put this teeny tiny little border around it. And I will zoom in a little bit so you can see how small it is. But that is just enough, especially with these dangly pieces here, to make it a stamp that you can cut out and then do different things with. Maybe put foam underneath it, or there's a lot of things you can do once it has that little border around it. Alright, so that is now done. So let me move this over to here. Alright, so now we have our Sending Love and we have our girl. So now we need our flowers. Let me bring the flowers up here. Now we're going to do the same thing with the flowers. Now we have to size the flowers a little bit because it's a little big here. Because our card is 5 by 7. I only want this to be 5 across. Now I want to make sure I don't mess up the proportions of this stamp. So I'm going to make sure this lock up here is locked. I'm going to do that again. So that's unlocked, it's open, and I'm going to lock that lock. So when you do that, it's going to keep the proportions the same. So now I can come over here at how wide something is, and I can go to 5 inches. Now I have to decide here if I want the stamp to hang off to the edge of the card, or do I only want it to cover the paper? I think I want it to hang off just a little bit, so I am going to leave it at the 4.99. All right, now here again, I'm going to change the cut line that it has here to black. All right, so now it's all nice and dark. So now I can highlight it, go to offset, make my tiny offset again, and I'm going to hit apply. Now I'm going to grab my stamp, I'm going to move it down, and here again we have all this detail in the inside which we really don't need for what we're doing today. So I'm going to highlight it, I am going to release the compound path, and I only want this outside part, and all this can all go away. I don't need that. And you do want to make sure you do clean your board here, or your mat. Just make sure everything's gone. Now I'm going to line this back up again. And I am going to group that together. So now this is done. All right, so now I want to bring in the faith before worry. Because I did delete it when I was deleting everything. I got a little delete happy, but that's okay. I can hit merge. I will pick the UK one again. I will find it on here. It is on the second page. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go to scroll down to the second page. And I'm going to import the second page. And now I'm going to ungroup it. I'm going to select the faith before worry. Make sure that's all grouped together. And I'm going to get rid of the rest of this. We don't need that. All right. So now you can decide if you just want to print this out on a piece of paper and use some nesting dies to cut it out, or you could grab a shape here. Now I'm just going to grab, let's see. Let's just grab this. Doesn't really matter what shape we grab. I'm going to, I can move it down to make it a different shape. I'll just leave it like that, I think. Maybe bring that over a little bit. So now, this I want to be 3 inches wide. Now I want to unlock this because I want to change just the height. I want to make it 5 inches tall. And that is just something I generally do. I like to make the inside of my cards 3 by 5. And then with a 3 1/4 by 5 1/4 mat. But you can do whatever it is you like to do. So I have this. So now I'm going to come over here to offset. And now to make a 1/4 inch different offset. Your first thought would be to put in 0.25 for a 1/4 inch. But that's going to make a 1/4 inch all the way around. So it's really a 1/2 inch difference. So you want to take a half of the 1/4, which is 0.12, because half of 25 is 12.5, but 12 is good enough for what we're doing here. So we're going to leave it at 0.12 and apply, and we'll go ahead and just make that green so we can keep track of what we're doing here. Now, so we have our mat. The faith before worry, we want to make sure is on top. So these buttons up here will either put what you have highlighted to the front or to the back. So we want to bring it to the front. And I'm going to center it by coming over here and pick center. And that looks pretty good. You can then pick your, highlight your message on the inside and move it left or right. You can move it up and down. Find where you like it. And I'm going to highlight it again to make sure it's still in the center. And that's good. So now that I will group together. All right, so let's put this together and make sure we have everything the way we want it to look. So let's bring in our 5x7. Oh, we are missing a piece. Let me move this out of the way here. So I want to make this oval piece that I have behind the lady here. So I'm going to bring in an oval. And I'm just going to lay that here for a minute. And I'm going to make sure she's in the front so I can bring her down. So now you have to decide, do you want it to cover up her whole body or have it hanging off like I have here? So the way I sized it is I wanted her shoulders to go from side to side like that. Be hanging off just a little bit, kind of like that is what I wanted it to look like. So that looks good to me. So now I'm going to highlight the oval. I'm going to give it another offset. I'm going to keep it at the same distance, and I'm going to go ahead and make that green just so I can keep track of all the things that I want to cut out on different colored paper. All right, so that should be everything now. So I'm going to go ahead and group that together for the moment. So let's bring in our card base. So we had our 5x7. We have the 4 3/4 by 6 3/4 mat. So now I'm going to start placing things on my card. So this is going to be up here. But you know what? Let me ungroup this for a second. If I could actually talk today. So this is the shadow for this. I'm going to make that shadow white. Now I'll show you why in a minute. So now when you line that up, and you group that together, and I pull it to the top of this card, it shows up a lot better. So now we have this, and let me find my sending love, which is going to be over here. Now I want to make sure this is going to be on the top because I do want that kind of hanging over a little bit. So now I can decide if I like how big all this is. Now, this here does feel like it's a little big, so I am going to lock it, and I am going to bring that down to 4.75. Let's see if that looks better. See, now that looks too small to me. So let's bring that back to 5. There we go. I think what it was is with the offset, it was making it just a little bit bigger. So now that should fit on the card just fine. Okay, so the only thing that I don't have here yet are these little pieces of paper I have here. Now I'll show you how I did that. Now you can do that a couple different ways. So I'm going to highlight my paper here, and I'm going to duplicate that. And I'm going to drag that over here. Now I can come over here to my shapes, and I have a shape that is this arrow. Okay? So I can take that, I can drag it down, drag it over to whatever shape I want. If I want to make it, let's make it 0.75 inches or 3/4. And that's probably long enough for it to be hanging out. So I can take this, and I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that and make a couple of these. So I'm not sure how many I want. And I may make one a little longer. So I'm going to leave it at 3/4 inch. And I'm going to unlock that. And maybe I'll make it 5 inches long. I can always trim some of it off later. I can make this one 4 inches. And I may end up trimming it once I get everything cut out. All right, so now that I have all this here, I'm going to come back over to Modify. I have everything highlighted. I have the 3 long pointed pieces highlighted and the paper, and I'm going to hit crop. Now when I do that, it gives me 3 pieces of the paper all cut and good to go. So now that is an exact copy of everything. So now we are ready to start cutting some of this out. Now a bunch of this is going to be print and cut, so I need to make sure the machine knows that's what I want it to do. So I'm going to come over here to print and cut. I'm going to turn on my registration marks, and I will close that. So now I can start laying things out for how I want it all printed. So I'm just going to move all this out of the way. Let me shift this over a little bit. So I want to start with these 3 pieces. I am going to put these on here. And I'm going to just try and fit as much on here as I can. Let's say I need one of these. Now the sending love, I want to separate because I only want this part, the print and cut. This I'm just going to cut out in paper, which I'll choose in a little bit. Unlock that. I am going to cut her out separately. And that's probably all I'm going to fit on there. I don't think this will fit. Oh, I can get it all to fit. Okay, so now that I've gotten all that to fit on here, I'm going to go ahead and hit print. So I just come up here to my printer. All right, so now I'm going to hit print. It's going to ask me what printer I want to print it on, and this is the one I want to print it on. I only want 1 copy. Now I would say you want to print these things on your best quality. So I'm going to switch this to high quality in color. And I'm going to print. All right, so here's our paper all printed out with my print and cut lines that my machine is going to look for. So I'm going to lay this on the mat and cut it out. All right, so the first page is printed. So let's go on to everything else. So I do need to print this 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. I need to print this circle, but I don't need to print these green pieces because I'm going to cut those out in paper. And this 5 by 7, I don't need to print that either because that was just my guide. So I just have these 2 things left. Now to get them to fit on one page, I'm going to go back up here to page setup. And I'm going to change this to landscape. So now I can put that here and this here. Now it's not going to print anything here. It's just going to cut out the oval for me. All right, so here's our mat that I changed to landscape and cut everything out. And here we go. Now I will tell you, I had a little trouble cutting this out because there is a debris tray in the top of the Cameo, which I did not realize was there. I've had that machine a couple of years and I have never cleaned that debris tray out. So as you could imagine, there was a lot of debris in there, and now that I cleaned it out, I'm getting beautiful cuts once again. All right, so that is all done. So now let's move on to cutting the paper. So this pink is what I'm going to use for the colored paper for the mats. And I thought that blended well. I thought that was going to look nice. So let me go ahead and get this cut out. All right, so let's move these out of the way because these are all cut. So now I'm going to change this back to portrait just so I don't mess that up. And I'm going to turn off my cut lines because I don't need those anymore. And the registration lines. And now I'm going to place these 3 pieces on here. Let's see. There we go. That will save a little bit of paper. And we'll get this cut. I am going to change this to heavy cardstock because this is definitely heavier paper. And let me just scroll down, find it. There it is. And we are all set. We're not going to cut that. There's nothing there to cut for that. And there we go. All right, so everything is cut out. Before we go any further, I want to make a couple points. Now, if you make a tiny little offset like this and your machine has trouble cutting it, what you can do is just go back and make your offset a little bigger. Instead of 0.3, maybe make it 0.5, and that will make it a lot easier for your machine to cut out, especially this one here, because this is so intricate up here. Maybe a 0.5 would have been a little bit better, but yeah, so definitely if you have trouble, just make your offset a little bit bigger. Now, I did cut out another piece of paper with my guillotine, because this was 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. And I decided it needed a little extra something here on the outside. So I am going to use a 4 7/8 by 6 7/8 mat on here. So I did do that. Now, let me lay all this together I know this isn't colored in yet, but let me lay all this together. Now, I've laid everything out here, but it looks a little flat. Now, this happens because everything is cut with the machine, and it's like cutting something with scissors, so there's really no texture added to it. So you want to make sure before you start gluing everything down, you add a little bit of texture somewhere to this card. Adding some foam pads will do the job. Adding an embossing folder or a stencil or something along that lines will just give it a little bit more oomph. So I'm going to use an embossing folder that I've had a long time because I needed it to be something small. I don't know what the name of this was, but it is Crafter's Companion, but it's been a long time. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to run these through my MIDI. I'm going to run this one, and I think the background for this one. And I'm going to run those through there, and I'll be right back. Alright, so let's look at the difference here. So now, when I put this on here, see, it just adds just a little bit more interest to the card, and it won't look so flat. So now that will sit on here, and this will sit on here, and it just gives your card a little bit more. Alright, so let me get these colored, and then we'll get this card put together. Alright, so I need to color these two pieces. I decided today I'm going to use colored pencils. I haven't used them in a while, so I thought it was a good time because this is pretty delicate in through here, and it's very fine, and I think it might be easier to get in there with the colored pencil. So I'm going to start with her skin, because that way I won't make a mistake and color something that shouldn't be colored. Or I should say color something by mistake that should be her skin when I get coloring. So I'm going to use eggshell and yellow, I think it's ochre. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to use this color for the shadows. So I'm going to put a little bit here where there should be shadows. On her neck, around her necklace here. Put a little darkness here by her dress. And I believe all of this is her sleeve and hair. So, not going to do any there. Put some on her chin, around her nose. There. Now I'm going to come in with the lighter eggshell and color that in. Let me sharpen this. All right, that's a little better. Let me color this in. Now I'm thinking my mat here might be a little soft, so let me get a harder surface to color on. Oh, this is much better. That silicone was just a little too soft to color on. Color in her nose. Let me bring the yellow back in again. More color. Now instead of using the blending solution, I'm going to use this blending pen. It's the same material that's in the blending solution, but it's in pen form. I really like it because you can travel with it because you don't need to bring any liquids with you. It's all self-contained, and it gives you just the right amount. And you can just go along, make little circles, blend it all in. so I think we're now ready to start gluing these things down and getting some foam. I may want to put a little bit of a stencil on this. So let me grab a little stencil. All right, I think I want to take baby blue. Let me take a piece of scrap. And I have this stencil from Rose Garden that has this little pattern on it. Let me see what this is going to look like. Just a quickie. Yeah, I think that will be enough. All right, so let me take this. Let me kind of put it like here. I'm just going to put something very light in the background. Yep, that's it. Just that. Hopefully that's not too much. All right, let me grab some foam and we'll start putting this together. All right, so let's start with the back and work our way forward here. So let's glue these two together. And then remember, this was a 4 7/8 by 6 7/8, and this was 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. So now we'll have this on top. This definitely is going up on foam. I'm going to use 1/16 foam. This is going to line up right across the top. Like that. Now, this one I may need to pull up a little bit. All right, so now let's put together the woman. So let's get these glued together. And I want it the dark part on the top or the dark part on the bottom. I think I'm going to put the darker part on the bottom. Since all this is on top of it, if it's darker on the bottom, it will show up better. Alright, so we need to support her head. We need to support her body. And put a piece here. And we'll put that last little piece there. Let's see. Want her to be here. She will be on here. That's why I pulled this one up, because I remembered this is going to go underneath like this. So let's glue this down. Tuck her underneath like that. Make sure she's not hanging off. The feather's now over her head. Alright, so now let's work on the Sending Love. Now here we have to decide what I want to put on foam here. I think I want to put both pieces on foam. So this roll of foam is also 1/16 thick, but it's only of 1/4 inch wide, so I'm going to use this on this. That way I don't have to trim it. We'll put a piece here. There we go. Getting a little overzealous there. And we'll put a little piece there. And a little piece over here. And this will go in the middle. Now decide if that's high enough or if I want that lifted. I'm kind of leaning toward leaving that on there. Put this over here. Looks like this needs a little bit more glue down here. I'm just going to reach under here, put a little more glue. There we go. Alright, time to put that on the card front. I'm going to grab my bigger bottle of glue here. I'm going to use Colol glue here because it will give me a moment to slide everything into place. Since this is such a small, I must put that on upside down. Since this is such a small border, that will give me time to slide it exactly where I want it. There we go. There, so there's the front. Now for the inside, all right, so we have Faith Before Worry, but this is now plain, so I think I want to emboss this also. So I'm going to take my embossing folder again, same one from the outside, and I'm going to run this through my machine. I need to make sure this is straight. All right, right back. All right, so now I have the same pattern on the inside. So I'll go ahead and glue this down. You know, I'm trying to decide, with all the black here on the outside, I think I want to bring some black to the inside. Let me grab my black ink. So I grabbed my quick dry ink, and I'm just going to rub this along the edge here. And it's going to be wider in some places than others. You have little corners like this, you can just dab it. I do like using the quick dry colors for this because they do dry so fast. But sometimes you do put a fair amount of ink on here. Glue this on. Yeah, when you edge your cards in black, it just gives it a little something. Even other colors, whatever color is predominant in your card, just gives it a little something on the inside. See, because I use quick dry, I can now rub my fingers across it, not smudge it. Alright, now this will get glued to the inside. So since I changed my mind with the shape of the message on the inside, I'm not really sure if I want to use this or not. I'm kind of leaning toward not using it. Because when you put this on here, I guess you know what? I will put it on the top. So I am going to lay that there. I'm going to catch that just like that. And I'm going to put some more glue on the back here. And put this in. Oh, I'm not really sure about that. You know what? I'm going to pull it off. I don't think that adds much to it. I'm just going to leave it plain. Changed my mind. Alright, well here we go. Here is the finished card. So we have the front, we have some foam, we've done the embossing, we've done some stenciling, we used the digital stamps, and we did the inside. So I hope you enjoyed this card. If you did, give me a thumbs up, because that is indeed how YouTube counts everything. And please consider subscribing to my channel, because I will have more cards every week. Until next time, stay crafty.